Hey everyone, welcome back to NENC Media Group. I'm your host, Nick, bringing you a clear-eyed geopolitical update. Today we're unpacking a bold, consequential statement from President Donald Trump about the war in Ukraine. He said Ukraine can't win this war by sitting back, and suggested Kiev may need to strike targets inside Russia, and that Washington should consider enabling that. By the end of this video you'll understand the stakes, the military trade-offs, and the diplomatic costs at play. Trump made the remarks this week as part of a broader effort to shape a ceasefire and security guarantees. They come after his return to the White House in January 2025. His comments argued that a purely defensive approach leaves Ukraine unable to break Russian logistics and rear-area infrastructure. He urged attacks on supply lines, airfields, and radar sites, and said allies should provide the weapons and intelligence to do it. This shift, from restricting strikes to entertaining cross-border options, is significant. Since Russia's full-scale invasion began on February 24, 2022, Western partners have mostly focused on helping Ukraine defend its territory, supplying artillery, air defenses, precision-guided munitions, and imposing sanctions meant to hinder Moscow's war effort. NATO and many US officials have been cautious about authorizing strikes inside Russia itself, fearing a wider escalation. But the policy debate about whether to permit limited, targeted strikes has continued. From a battlefield perspective, the argument for limited cross-border strikes is about disrupting logistics and command nodes. Denying Russia fuel, repair facilities, depots and staging areas can open operational windows for Ukrainian advances. Advocates say offensive action, carefully targeted and constrained, can change the tempo of a grinding war and force Moscow to react. But the downsides are real and immediate. Russia's integrated air defenses, interior troop reserves, and strategic depth make deep operations costly and risky. Politically, any US decision to greenlight or materially support cross-border attacks would be a major shift for the executive branch. It would require new legal and policy choices, likely consultations with Congress, and would test NATO cohesion. Allies would need to agree on lines of engagement and acceptable targets. The White House has signaled a more flexible posture in recent days, even discussing forms of aerial or protective support tied to security arrangements, but details and limits matter. Crucially, the human and strategic costs must drive the calculus. Cross-border strikes can prompt targeted Russian retaliation against Ukrainian cities, critical infrastructure, or even Western assets. There's also the danger that signaling permissive stances without robust safeguards will force allies into uncomfortable choices during an already heated campaign. Defense experts are split. Some retired commanders argue well-planned strikes could fracture Russian logistics. Others warn the risk of escalation is too high. On the ground in Ukraine, the war remains attritional. Kiev has achieved periodic gains in counteroffensives, but front lines, key transport hubs, and contested towns continue to shift slowly. Both sides are prioritizing stockpiles of ammunition, drones, and air defenses ahead of autumn and winter, when weather complicates large mechanized moves and supply routes become harder to sustain. Civilian displacement and infrastructure damage remain severe, and any escalation could multiply humanitarian costs across the region. International law and diplomacy can't be ignored. Strikes that cross international borders raise thorny legal questions and would trigger Russian protests and likely countermeasures in diplomatic forums. Any credible plan to alter targeting policy would need independent verification, narrow targeting criteria, and contingency measures to protect civilians and de-escalate where possible. Domestically, the debate is political dynamite. The president's tougher posture resonates with voters who want a firmer line toward Moscow, while others worry about open-ended involvement and the costs of deeper entanglement. In Ukraine, many civilians and frontline soldiers understandably want measures that might shorten the war. Yet Ukrainian leaders must weigh whether new offensive tools would materially improve their position, or simply invite reprisals. Internationally, allies will watch closely and condition their support on safeguards and legal clarity. So where does that leave us? President Trump's comments have shifted the public debate and forced policy questions into daylight. Can Ukraine achieve decisive gains without striking Russian territory? And are Western powers willing to accept the risks of backing cross-border operations? There are no easy answers. Any path forward demands precise targeting, clear legal authority, allied consensus, and robust plans to protect civilians, limit escalation, and manage the humanitarian fallout. Now it's your turn. Do you think Ukraine should pursue limited cross-border strikes if they might shorten the war? Or is a restrained, defensive approach still the wiser course? Leave your thoughts below. We read every comment. If you found this breakdown useful, hit like and subscribe to NENC Media Group for more geopolitical deep dives. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with another update soon. Stay safe and keep the conversation going.